So I'm Paul G. I'm the person who is responsible for the digital product management and development for the JAMA network. And Anne asked me to talk a little bit about our strategy of how we make decisions at the JAMA network, how we fight against resources and try to make the best with what we have. I'll start with, I think the medical publishing industry has an inherent irony that we all struggle with. The goal of the papers that we publish, that we call papers, even in this digital format, are all about innovations in medicine, amazing innovations, sometimes that are far, far ahead of the innovations we use to disseminate those innovations. The irony is that we are tasked as a digital team or as a publisher with getting far ahead of the crowd, making sure we're in a good technology spot in order to deliver the news about new innovations, but we're not very innovative all the time. And I'm going to start with a little case study about how sometimes trying to get very innovative too fast may not get you where you want to go. The JAMA network, if you're not familiar, it's JAMA plus the specialty journals of the American Medical Association. We're the peer review publishing arm. I say that we're a small, big publisher. We're smaller than some, we're bigger than others. And I think when you think of the American Medical Association, it's a big organization. JAMA is a smaller subgroup of that organization with its own budget and its own struggles. We struggle just like any other publisher with decisions about where to invest in technology and what the right ones are. Back in 2012, HTML5 had just come out. It was a great new technology and we needed an app. We jumped straight into HTML5 because it seemed like the right way to go. From a cost perspective, getting in an app in every browser that you can, and it seemed like an exciting thing to do. It worked for us in many ways, but one of the things it did do is it created a struggle with the marketing team and the sales team to get it in the hands of physicians and to have them accept that something that had a URL was actually an app. That was a misstep, and it's a very subtle misstep that when you're thinking about technology, you may miss. We learned a lesson, and I kind of see it this way. We were putting the D before the R. We did development before we did the research. And we did it in a way where we said a lot of, the catchphrase at the time was we need to get an MVP out in the field. The subtlety of MVP is that viable is a really important term, and it doesn't mean technical feasibility. HTML5 was technically feasible. We did it, we got it out there, but it wasn't necessarily delivered in a viable way for the end user. And so we kind of got just a little bit further ahead of where we needed to be. Trying to put the R before the D is one of the things we've been working on. And we've been learning from this sort of case, and we're trying to slowly make changes to the way we think about product development. One of the changes we made a couple years ago was to take the product management team and divide it into two teams where there's a small R&D team, and then there's a bigger operation around the live products. This gives the researchers and the R&D team a little space to dream. It separates them from the ongoing churn of bugs and outages or even successes of the live product. They can be in a space where they can think about something 6 months or 2 years in the future without all those distractions. We started, instead of thinking about big technologies, think about small improvements. Test everything you can, but try to find the small ideas that are just the right incremental growth based on things our users are already familiar with. And we have a lot of ideas in our house. I'm sure everyone has a billion ideas that they want to chase. One way to sort of prioritize your backlog is to test them all quickly and iteratively and fail them as quickly as you can. So you may have like 20 ideas, and when you start testing them with end users, the users tell you which ones to discard. So I try to get the R&D team to fail as often as possible and to learn from those failures, because every failure teaches you something. And then once we have a concept or an idea that's starting to fully form, we go through a normal iteration where we try to test those ideas, synthesize feedback from the test, do some more research, and keep doing this until we feel we have a solid product. The R&D team is actually responsible for developing products, and once those products are ready to launch, they will move into the product organization. That handoff allows the R&D team to go back into their white space and do more research, take findings that maybe they couldn't accomplish in the last round and start iterating on those again. And the product team has a different set of tasks, a different responsibility, where they understand how to host something. There are vendors that a lot of times our products will move into, and it puts it in a space where it's safe, it's ready to be managed. Following this process, our bug counts go down because the people managing the product usually have different skills than those that are developing them, and the two accountabilities are different. When we go along this path, there's a couple things. Anne asked me to talk a little bit about the buy versus build decisions, or how we kind of shake out those choices. We're a content provider. That's the core of our business. We're not a medium, we're not a technology, and we try to make decisions that way. So if we're building IP, we're building it around content. And if we're building technology, we're not getting distracted by something like HTML5 and trying to own HTML5. That's a delivery mechanism, and trying to make that decision that way. So at the time when we're actually developing a product and building it out, and we have to determine whether we're going to own it or try to find it someplace else, we kind of go through this sort of decision-making matrix. I think that everybody's success is independent on who they are. Our challenges are much different than our other, even similar publishers' challenges. And as we get closer and closer to understanding what makes our users tick and what makes our business tick, like the whole group that makes these decisions, really we're like a runner who's judging our progress on ourselves, not on our competitors, not on what technology is out there, but like how can we make incremental improvements so that we can run it just a little bit faster, a little bit better, judging it based on what we ran the day before. I try to boil things down to something that's really simple, so that even the newest person in the team can easily understand how every day what they do will help the entire business. And from a product perspective, this is a simple way to say, make people engage with articles. If they engage with articles and you use that as your decision-making sort of mode, whether you're determining whether to build a feature, to fix a bug, think about the things that will drive the most author interest in an article, providing articles to us. The more article engagement we get, the more advertising there is, the more institutional sales there are. One little sort of North Star idea can make everyone feel like they're connected to the mission, make everyone feel like they know why they're coming to work every day, and it helps you make decisions when you're trying to triage complicated things. Now, we sometimes build things that don't drive article engagement, but we make an educated decision about why, and we ask a lot of questions around that. I sum it up. I'm really thrifty. I don't like to spend a lot of money on nothing. I don't think anyone does, and we don't have the time to. This quote kind of speaks to the whole thing in a nutshell. The adjacent possible is what your users are ready for. It's what innovations haven't really been accomplished by yourselves or maybe someone else in the space, but they're probably laying around the house. They're probably things that you've already encountered or technologies you've already used. You just haven't used them in the right way. And trying to give our research team enough space to figure out where those adjacent possible steps are is kind of conceptually what we're trying to do. Thank you.
I think we're going to leave this one up because I like this. But so just, I mean, in summary, so, Paul brought us a little bit farther, and what I really like, I love the idea of having that small kind of instantiation of your strategy that's easy for people to understand and to help them not necessarily go off the rails or off on tangents. So I guess I'd like to open it up for questions. We have some, but I think yours will be more interesting. We even have a mic up here. So, here we go. Maybe run around. Oh, that's okay.
Hi, I'm Jane Hebert-White from Health Affairs. And Paul, I wanted to talk to you. Dan, you talked about this some, about the editorial side of things, but I'm wondering how you work with your editorial team, because a lot of technology is driven to either help the editorial team or to help surface new ideas for the building content. So I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Can you, arm in arm every day. We work really tightly with the editorial team. We've aligned our strategies in many ways. I mean, even the strategy I talked about, content first, articles first, it helps us all stay on the same page. And my editorial team's really pushing us on technology all the time. So having something like, does it create engagement? A unified value we all share and we all care about helps get through some of those prioritization questions.
Questions?
Hi, I'm Jackie Prince from the New England Journal of Medicine. And Paul, question for you, no surprise. How big is your team, and how long did it take you to develop a handoff process between R&D and product? And how well is it working?
The team itself is probably around 15 people that are covering R&D, product management. Sorry?
15?
Oh, yeah, around 15.
Not 50.
15.
Brian, don't worry, not 50.
There's a team. And they're responsible for at this point both an education center and the JAMA network, and they break out into digital marketing, product management, and DevOps. So there's a lot of stuff we're doing within that. I think I put the cheat sheet up there. There's a few apps, there's an LMS, there's 15 websites and about 60 microsites that they're all responsible for. So the DevLab process was really important because it doesn't, when you're managing that much, it doesn't matter what happens. 15 people can get sucked into any emergency. So having a rule where there's 3 people, and that's about the size of our DevLab, that can't get sucked into every emergency no matter what, it helped get some space. And so we started the R&D team probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and we got through one iterative cycle of testing a bunch of stuff, failing a lot of stuff, and finding one idea, and we're slowly releasing the first app that we sort of, I guess our editor would say, co-created with our authors, which is the Jay and Listen app, which is about to release into the paid model this month.
So before we go to your question, I want everybody to be thinking about things that you're doing in your organization that help you to make these kinds of decisions, because I'm going to ask you all next.
Hi, Hannah Heckner with Science Magazine. This question is sort of for Daniel and for Paul. I feel like a lot of new ideas can come up and seem both a value add and a mission-driven idea. I feel like that comes up a lot with us as we think about tools for researchers and overall statements about things like open data and making those tools available to authors. So how do you sort of juggle the success measures of something that might seem like a logo on a golf player's visor today, but could maybe be a revenue driver later?
That's a doozy of a question right there. So I would say that one of the key metrics that we're going to be looking at is how excited people are in the organization for some of these mission-driven events. If I have to drag people kicking and screaming, it's not going to succeed, even if it succeeds, because people are going to remember that, man, that was a real hassle to get that implemented. So on the other hand, there are some things that we've tried out that we thought were going to turn out that way, and say, oh, you know, this is going to add value, and it's going to increase engagement, and we're going to get usage out of it. And you know, for the most part, those have not panned out for us. And I think part of it is our readership are, for the most part, not really interested in publishing technology because they are there to get tenure and teach, and that is their driving force. So we're struggling to find some of these things, and so it ends up being, you know, do we have the internal champions to push these things forward, and because we think they're a good idea, and drag people along with us.
I agree with that. We start with internal consensus. If it's something that doesn't really seem like it's something that's going to make sense in the next 6 months, it doesn't mean we don't try it. We try lots of things, and usually, if there's a group of people that have a deep interest in seeing something tested, we test it or we try it and even spend money on it or implement it. Some of those things work out really well, and some of those things don't.
So, anyone have a strategy that they employ where they are that they would like to talk about? I'm sure you all are doing something. Oh, you can. Go on, Stacy.
Stacy with ASM. I think that you had talked, Paul, about rolling out to market with marketing, which is a novel idea. And I wanted to know if you could just talk through that process and how involved the marketing team is with the R&D team and how they drive the strategy, or any kind of meetings you have with them.
During the first run of the Dev Lab process, we call the R&D team the Dev Lab. The marketing team, the designers, had the space during the end of the actual development of the app to take it from customer research with the R&D team all the way to launch, to a beta launch, and then to make changes to it based on mutual feedback. We've tried really hard to work hand in hand with the different groups and get research implemented into the product and keep it built so that internal users and all the information we get from them and external users is all synthesized. It's not, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but we have attempted to try to bring those two worlds together.
Hi, I have a question for Jill. Right here. So I really liked that screenshot of your portfolio and alignment, and I have a couple of questions about that as a symbol and that as a tool. One is, the first one is, how widely disseminated across your organization is that? And is it widely understood and used as a touchstone? And the other question is it a living document? Is it updated frequently, or is it at a higher level?
Oh, well, so within our staff, it is, everybody has it. So we had a full team meeting about it to everyone, because everyone is involved. I mean, we're a small team. We're less than 15 people, but everyone is involved, all departments, and everyone is involved. And then we also involve key leadership. So certainly our council and our executive committee, and then other relevant groups to understand the direction that we're going. Now, is it updated and a living and breathing document? Yes and no. So the strategic elements that were in the dark green at the top, those remain the same. The part we need to update is the part that's in the light green, which represents our progress on our project documents and some changes in the way our organization has worked since that was developed. That would be so. It is not as up to date as it should be, but the idea is that it would remain a living and breathing document. Thank you.
More questions? Well, I actually think we're going to let some people have a bit of time back in their day if we don't have any more questions. Could we all just thank our speakers?